Hey guys, it's Generalkidd here. How's everyone doing today? So, for today's video, we're going to be tackling the question of what's in the dark zones of Mombasa Streets in Halo 3 ODST. So as you know, New Mombasa in ODST is a pretty big city that gives you a lot of freedom to explore around, especially if you start up the mission with like the open city option on MCC. But you might have noticed that if you bring up the map, there's quite a few locked doors here and there throughout the city. And behind those locked doors, there's also a dark zone where if you zoom in, you can see there's still like structures and streets and other stuff in there. And overall, there's 5 dark zones throughout the city. So what's in these dark zones? Well, it's not like Tom Clancy's The Division, where the dark zone is like a PvP section of the city. But when I decided to check this out, at first I tried to unlock all the doors of the city so that I could see, like, maybe I could just open the doors and walk through them into the dark zone. But a lot of the doors, they either have like a hall of mirrors behind them or a solid wall behind them. So to get into the dark zone, I had to do more than just unlock all the doors. So let's take a look at what each dark zone looks like, starting with the Sector 2 dark zone. And I'll show you guys all the sectors in a bit. But the Sector 2 dark zone is the one right behind you at mission start. And that's, you know, the doors that I showed you like a minute ago. But let's fly through in theater mode. I removed the barriers so that we're able to fly through and take a look at what's inside this dark zone. And as you can see, it does have a lot of structures in here and some buildings. So let's cover what each sector are. Right now we're in Sector 2. So one thing about New Mombasa and ODST is that the city, well, only half of it is actually unique. The other half is just like a duplicate of the first half and then just, you know, flipped upside down and flipped the other way as well. So what this means is that sectors 0, 1, 7, and 9 are effectively the exact same sectors, and Sector 2 and Sector 6 are also mirrors and copies of each other, which is why if we fly over here to Sector 6, it's not loaded yet, but we could see Sector 6 has the exact identical structures and buildings inside as Sector 2. Now we can't load in Sector 2, but we can load in Sector 6 to see what Sector 6 looks like, because that's, you know, a part of the city that you're supposed to be able to go to. But essentially, if we could load in Sector 2, which we can't, it would look exactly the same as Sector 6, just maybe, you know, objects that are spawned there, enemies, debris, and junk might be different, but the base, the basic layout and everything will be the exact same. Now let's move on to the next dark zone, the Sector 0 dark zone. This one's actually a pretty big one, but as you can see, there's a locked door and there's also a Covenant shield in the way of this dark zone, and it's near Kikowani Station actually. But to get to this dark zone, this one was a lot easier. I just removed the barriers and made myself jump higher so I could just literally jump over the Covenant barrier. But this dark zone is actually loaded in, unlike Sector 2, which it's pretty much hall of mirrors out there, except for a few objects. But in this dark zone, you can actually, it's actually a pretty big area, and there's a lot in this dark zone that you could explore around. There's no enemies, there's no like objects spawned in, but it's everything is there. It's fully playable in here, and it's a shame they actually closed off several of these sections, because these sections are fully complete and can be accessed. Basically, this dark zone, I mean, there's a few things missing, like certain doors, and you saw like the gates were unlocked. They're only unlocked because I unlocked all of them when I was experimenting to see if I could simply walk through the gates into the dark zone. But this dark zone is basically like a clean, clean part of the city. It's so clean. There's like no junk anywhere. There's like no litter on the ground or anything. It's just like a cleaned up version of the regular part of the city. But yeah, this is what the Sector 0 dark zone looks like. Now let's move on to the Sector 7 dark zone. This one is on the opposite side of the city. But Sector 7 is essentially another duplicate of Sector 0. But this part of the city, it's this dark zone, it's not loaded in at all. I mean, you can still see the details and layouts, but just like Sector 2, you cannot go inside. It's nothing's loaded inside, but there are a few structures here and there, some buildings, but overall there's nothing in here. But it is a duplicate of Sector 0, basically the Kikowani Station area. So that whole sector, that whole section, if you could load in Sector 7, that's what it would look like. Minus, you know, the extra stuff that's added to make the different parts of the city look different. But anyways, moving on to Sector 9. This one has a lot of stuff in it. So let's start with the actual Dark Zone first. There's actually more than just a Dark Zone here, but once again, this Dark Zone is hidden behind a shield door, and just like Sector 0, it's pretty much identical here. But it does connect to another section of the city that's walled off, and it's not technically a Dark Zone, but I'll cover that in a minute. But for now, I'll just quickly showing you guys this part of the city. It's pretty much the same. So let's move on and take a look at the next section. So right next to that shield door, there's another shield door, just basically around the corner. And in this part, it's, you know, the map says you can go in. It's not a Dark Zone like right here. Like this whole Kikowani section station, it's not the actual Kikowani station, but it is walled off and you can't access it. But it says you can access it. Well, like I said, everything is duplicated, and I'm not saying like Bungie like cut corners, but you know, they basically did duplicate parts of the city and just changed like some objects that spawned on it just to make it feel different. But you will encounter identical parts of the city every now and then, because not every duplicate is a Dark Zone. There are sections that aren't, you know, Dark Zones that you can get into, and this is basically one example of that. Even though it's walled off, it's not technically a Dark Zone, and as a result, you can access the exact same Kikowani Station area as Sector 0, which is the actual part you're supposed to go to for the campaign to get the to get that mission. But what's different about this section is that the subway station is not closed off. I believe at the actual Kikowani Station area, there's gates here preventing you from going down into the subway tunnels. But here, even though it's a duplicate of Sector 0, you're totally free to enter the subway station. Now, of course, in a station, it doesn't go much further. It's just an empty room down there. But it's still pretty cool to check it out. Also, funny thing is, you might have noticed, but for some reason, ODSTs have trouble walking up stairs or escalator steps. Usually they can walk upstairs in buildings just fine, but for some reason going up the escalator is kind of a bit of a challenge, actually, and there's a lot of resistance, and it's kind of hard to walk up the steps. So for some weird reason, that's a limitation of ODSTs. Not lore, of course, but technical limitation. Then anyways, the last subway tunnel we can go down is this one. They're all the same, but this last one has like this mist or smoke cloud in here that's like flickering with the lights. But that's really the only difference compared to the other three. Now, even though this sector, as well as a couple other sectors, you know, are loaded in despite being Dark Zones, at least most of them, I don't know if they're actually used for anything. Some of these sectors might be used for cinematics or cutscenes, but I'm not sure. The reason why I might think that is because, like, in here in this room, if you go inside, there's an elevator shaft here, and you know, it's open. You can go inside, and there's actually stuff inside. And this might have been used for like one of the later cutscenes, but I'm not positive on that. But it's a possibility. I mean, why have that room in there if it's unused? But it might just be like a leftover or duplicate from another sector that is actually used. But anyways, the last sector we're looking at is the Sector 1 Dark Zone. This one, again, is another technical duplicate of Sector 0, because it's one of the four corner Dark Zones. But just like Sector 7, this one is inaccessible. It's this Dark Zone, it's not loaded in, and if you were to fly over with the theater mode camera, it would just look like the other Sector 7 Dark Zone. So basically, only the Sector 0, 9, and technically Kikowani Station area are accessible. The others, Sector 2 Dark Zone, 7, and this one, Sector 1, are not loaded in and therefore cannot be accessed. But if they were to be loaded in, if they could be, they would look pretty much the same as each other. The only unique Dark Zone, really, that's not duplicated across other Dark Zones is Sector 2. But even that is in itself a duplicate of Sector 6, which is not a dark zone. But yeah, so there you guys have it. That's what's in the dark zones. It's not a multiplayer PvP area like in The Division, but there is some interesting stuff in a few of the dark zones, and the rest aren't loaded in. But anyways, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video and found it to be interesting. If you did, as always, make sure to leave a like. Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you have any other questions or things for me to look into or check out, just let me know in the comments below, and I'll definitely do my best to look into it when I get a chance. But other than that, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye, guys.